So my husband told me that he doesn't love his stepson and that most of the time he doesn't even like him. And what do you know? Now we're getting divorced. This is a conversation that we had on December 1st, our 10-year anniversary, when he told me that he really doesn't like my son and that he resents him for the fact that I put him first and that my son is priority to me above anything else. And you know what? That's okay, because that's never going to change. So on December 1st, when we had that conversation, that's when I knew I was done. Okay, that's when I knew I was finished. I'm like, I'm so gone. Like, you don't love this child that you have raised kind of for 10 years, this kid that you've seen grow up, this kid that is a direct reflection of me, because I have poured everything in my life into raising him properly. You're going to tell me that you don't love him and that you want me to put you, a 33-year-old man, first over raising an 11-year-old boy? Absolutely not. So on our 10-year anniversary, I told him, I said, yeah, I'm done. You need help. You need to go to therapy. My son is not my soon-to-be ex-husband's child. Now, if he were his child, that would be a different story. I would choose to put my husband first because it's a direct reflection of how a man and a wife should be, and it should be a good example.
You shouldn't have married him. And I might catch a lot of heat for this, but it's not because he's the problem. Just think about it, because what you said was that if he was your son's biological father, that you would be putting him first. But that's not the case. He's not his biological father. And even though he was there from almost the start, your son was 1 year old. That man lived 10 years in that household as a guest. He was never accepted as father or as husband. He was continuously reminded in all of the little things and all of the big things that you would choose your son over him in every single case. And not only would you silently just do what you thought what was best, you would throw it in his face, just like you are here, because your husband opened up, he was vulnerable, and he said that he had resentment towards a child. Like, he knows that's not right, but something caused it. And I would argue that it's not anything wrong within him. I would argue it is because of the dynamic of the relationship that you are a part of. And that's something that you need to be part of to fix, but you are obviously not, because you are blaming him and you are setting it up for him to fix his issue. Am I right, guys? Like, this is a very valid fear and valid reasoning as to why a man is not going to want to date a single mom.
I'm so afraid to have kids because what if, worst case scenario, what if I have a boy?
I would feel very sorry for that child if such a person was to be their potential mother, because unfortunately, this is really a sign of how much the prejudice against men has become almost normalized in our society, and that misandry is such a mainstream part of it, that this is not an uncommon sentiment that has been expressed by many women who despise men. They would rather not have children at all than have a boy.
Sorry, have you ever met a boy, like, at any age?
Oh, wait, this is going somewhere, and it's disturbing.
They're all obsessed with off or violent things or violently off.
Well, that was just troubling. However, I would like to take this moment to address those women out there that happen to agree with what that person said. If you are of the opinion that you do not like the way that your child is behaving, or that they are doing inappropriate things, in your opinion, do you know whose fault that is? It's not the fault of the child, because they are a child. That would be the fault of the parents or parent who does not teach their child acceptable boundaries and appropriate behaviors. Parents are responsible for raising their children to be responsible adults, but some of you just want to blame it on their gender. It's time to accept some personal responsibility.
Before we dive in, drop a comment. Are modern men more delusional, or is it the ladies? Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what we expose next. Because let's be honest, accountability has become a foreign language in today's dating culture. We live in a time where personal responsibility is treated like an insult and self-reflection is seen as oppression. So when someone says if they were willing to accept accountability for their own actions, that's not shade, that's a diagnosis. That's asking many of them to do the impossible. And that opening line alone tells you everything you need to know about where modern relationships are going off the rails. See, if accountability were actually present, behavior would change, choices would have consequences, patterns would get corrected. But instead, what do we see? Comfort, confidence, the kind of boldness that only exists when someone truly believes they'll never be held responsible for what they say or do. That's why she felt completely safe posting a video that outrageous. No fear, no hesitation, no thought of, maybe I'm wrong here, because the modern playbook tells her she's always the victim, always justified, and always deserving no matter how reckless the behavior. This isn't about one video. It's about a system that rewards blame shifting and punishes accountability. A culture where reflection is optional, but entitlement is mandatory. Where calling someone out is labeled toxic, but acting toxic gets applause. And as long as accountability is seen as too much to ask, moments like this won't be rare, they'll be the norm.
Have to make $500,000 a year to date you.
First of all, a gold digger is a woman that goes after a man for his money. So I would date a man if he has money. I want a man with some money.
Okay, I got the money.
If you don't have, if you don't make $500,000 or more,
$500,000.
I'm not going to date you.
I have to make $500,000 a year to date you. How much do you make a year?
Well, I'm a nurse.
He has to make I have to make $500,000 a year to date you. So how much do you make a year? Because you have to make at least half of that, right? Tell me, how much do you make a year,
I'm
babe?
not going to discuss my financial income
because you don't make
over the phone.
You don't make no. You don't make $100,000. You don't make $40,000 a year.
Where's the $40,000 a year?
A man has to make $500,000 to date you, but you don't even make six figures.
I'm saying I want.
And here's the uncomfortable truth they keep tripping over. A wealthy man doesn't want you. That's the sentence that short-circuits the whole fantasy. Because what they struggle to understand is that attraction isn't declared, it's earned. You don't get access to a man's resources, leadership, or lifestyle just because you decided you deserve it. Wealthy men don't move off entitlement. They move off value, peace, and alignment. What makes it almost comical is watching the mental gymnastics that follow the rationalizations, the coping narratives. Suddenly it's, well, I don't need him anyway, or men are intimidated, or he should accept me as I am. But notice how none of those explanations involve self-improvement or self-awareness. It's always the market that's wrong, never the product. And this is where the contradiction gets exposed. They set sky-high standards for men, income status, emotional discipline, leadership, yet can't meet even half of the expectations they place on others. No cooperation, no accountability, no femininity, no peace, just demands. That's not confidence. That's entitlement, dressed up as self-worth. High-value men have options, and options create selectivity. They're not impressed by loud claims, online validation, or soft life slogans. They're looking for consistency, respect, and someone who adds value rather than friction. So when reality doesn't match the fantasy, instead of adjusting expectations, they double down on delusion. And that gap between what's demanded and what's offered is exactly why the outcome keeps being rejection. The market isn't confused. The standards aren't unclear. What's missing is the mirror.
Yeah, sure.
Get my number.
Where you gonna take me?
Where you want to go?
I like steakhouses. Like,
Oh, bet for sure. As long as you're paying, we can go wherever the fuck you want.
No.
Any steakhouse you
I'm
want.
not paying you.
Oh, you're not paying?
No.
I don't think this is gonna work.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it's giving broke. Yeah. Sorry. I only like women with money.
Cause you know it's mad weird to me. Like niggas is more concerned about why he started recording in the middle of a female in his room or tripping out. Like why is that a question? Thank God. We need to be saying thank God he was recording, okay? Because this would have been a huge situation of my word against yours. And just how the internet jumped on her bandwagon, they would have continued to be on her bandwagon had he had not had that proof. Had he not had that. Like, I see y'all asking, oh, yeah, people talking about that was weird. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, it was not weird. It was very smart. Very smart as hell. And I'm so glad he pulled his phone out and recorded the conversation. Because now, old girl has continued to play in everyone's face. Now she telling y'all to wrap this by 2026. But y'all...
Isn't it telling how their outrage is completely misplaced? Notice what bothers them more. Not the lie, but the fact that he recorded proof. That reaction alone exposes the real priority. Protecting a narrative, not the truth. Because if the lie were the problem, the conversation would stop right there. Lying about what actually happened would be unacceptable. Full stop. But instead, the focus shifts to how dare he document it. How? And that tells you everything about the system we're dealing with. In this culture, a man defending himself is treated as suspicious, while a false accusation is treated as emotional expression. Evidence becomes manipulation, accountability becomes control, and truth becomes optional if it disrupts the preferred storyline. They don't see false accusations as dangerous, even though they can destroy reputations, careers, families, and mental health. What they see as dangerous is men no longer being defenseless, men no longer playing along, men refusing to accept guilt by default. That's why recording proof feels like a threat. It removes leverage. It introduces consequences. And once evidence exists, the victimhood angle collapses. So instead of condemning dishonesty, they condemn self-protection. Instead of holding liars accountable, they shame men for preparing receipts. Because a world where men can prove the truth is a world where false narratives stop working. And that's the real fear. Not what happened, but that the truth can no longer be rewritten after the fact.
So you think just because you're a woman that you have this privilege for a man to get up out of his seat, and he's probably tired as hell too? You know what I'm saying? He probably putting in that pain, putting in that work, you feel me? At an actual job, you feel me? And you just got back from shopping. But you can't stand there and wait. You know what I'm saying? You want to look at all the men and like, you try to like make them feel guilty or something? You know what I'm saying? I would have been just like a old boy on the side of you and just been smiling like, yeah, shorty, this is what it is. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting down, I'm chilling. I don't know what y'all be thinking. Y'all think just because y'all got coochies that this come with some type of privilege. No, it's a different time. No bull. And then you want to say men used to go to war. Men still do go to war. So that argument is just out the window. What is the point of y'all even saying that? That means absolutely nothing. There are men that still go to war. There is men that still enlist in the military.
You're physically stronger than me. If you wanted to, you could kill me. I would say that you would never do that. But like there is not a 0% chance of that happening either. Like these women who thought their husbands would never did. The reality of that has been weighing on me lately. And I'm scared to talk to you about it because I don't want you to like get the idea to do anything.
Thank you for sharing that with me. This must be so exhausting.
For him.
Bro, you are talking about a whole lot of nothing. What you are crying over isn't even a real problem. This is all made up in your head.
There is no reason for a man to behave like a gentleman with a prostitute. That's kind of the whole selling point. That would be ridiculous at best and wasteful and dangerous at worst. So that's the answer to the question that began this series. Where are all the gentlemen? They disappeared when the lady went extinct. And it wasn't men who killed her. Women have proudly fought tooth and nail to escape the social restrictions that defined that identity over the past 60 years. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that modern women want the best of both worlds. They want the social freedom of the prostitute and the respectability of the lady. And that just doesn't make sense. Like, one person can't be both a lady and a prostitute at the same time. If these designations are to have any meaning whatsoever, they need to be grounded in objective phenomena. And while it's always kind of easy for a lady to become a prostitute, it's very, very difficult for a prostitute to become a lady. It is possible, like the Empress Wu, who started out as a concubine in Chinese history, but it is much more difficult than the opposite. So let's be real. The standard template for women's behavior in the sex marketplace today is to engage in casual sex without commitment through their 20s and then settle down into marriage around 30. That is, they want to enjoy the social freedom of a prostitute for 10 to 15 years, and then they want the respectability of a lady for the rest of their lives. And unfortunately, that doesn't make sense to men. In fact, this is exacerbated even further by recent dating trends. The rise of soft life girls and women who say reject coffee dates and expect greater effort from men drive this point home. These women do not complain that men are expecting sex without marriage. They complain that men are being stingy with their resources. Does this sound like a lady who is upset she is being treated like a prostitute? Or like a prostitute who is clamoring for a raise? Let's do some math. Dinner for two at a high-end restaurant, $200. Taxis there and back, $60. After dinner drinks, $80. That comes to around $350 out of pocket. So when women today insist that they only consent to dates where they are wined and dined, they think they are communicating that they are high-value ladies who know their worth, when in reality, they are advertising that their opportunity costs $350, which is actually on the low end when it comes to escorts in most major Western cities. On some level, this makes these women both unsuccessful ladies and unsuccessful prostitutes. They're unsuccessful ladies because a lady would not transact her opportunity outside of commitment, and they're unsuccessful because, well, the successful ones charge more. And that's where we are in today's day and age. A lady is a woman with a relatively low body count, which means that she's only transacted her sexual opportunity outside of commitment a few times, who expects greater upfront resource expenditure in the courtship process. And I think it's fair to say that this is so far from the original definition of the word lady that we probably shouldn't keep using it, though the residual connotations are certainly beneficial to the women who have appropriated it. And this isn't likely to change anytime soon. Why? Because a woman who tries to put on the other side of commitment today is going to be priced out of the marketplace, especially if she is not a young virgin. This is because she'd be making her opportunities significantly more expensive relative to her interest competition. And people, men and women, don't pay more than they need to for any given good. So such a woman would frankly have to be so extraordinary in so many other respects that such a strategy would be inaccessible to most women by definition. And besides, women have shown no indication that they want to go back to the way things were. The general feeling here is that women should be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, with whomever they want, etc. The general understanding is that marriage is a convention that was based on patriarchal repression of women. They didn't get anything good out of that, being ladies. And any convention that restricts modern women's permissiveness is going to be perceived as controlling and repressive. And it's like, fair enough. I also love my freedom a lot, so I can understand why women would be loath to dispense with theirs. Nor am I arguing to go back to the way things were. They can't. The genie does not go back into the bottle. What I am arguing is that we all see reality as clearly as possible.
And if this video resonated with you, if it connected dots you've been watching people ignore for way too long, then trust me, the next one goes even deeper. Because this isn't a one-off situation. It's part of a much bigger pattern playing out across modern dating, relationships, and social expectations. The same themes, the same contradictions, the same refusal to take responsibility, just wrapped in a different story. So if you're interested in seeing how these dynamics keep repeating, how the narratives keep collapsing under their own weight, and how reality always wins in the end, you're going to want to watch what's coming next. I'll see you there.